wish I could shut off these damn notifications.
No, that's all right.
That's
Welcome
all right.
to the this is how the podcast starts. Welcome
Yeah.
to it. Appetite for Distortion, episode 260. Well, you could tell right away if you're watching on Zoom of who's on the show, but podcast, you should recognize the first voice that just chimed in there. You'll see if you get the notifications off. Doug Goldstein, you're a popular guy. I think that's why,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the email notifications, or what are they? Are they just like angry?
Like I said, I just pulled up notifications and I turned off messages and mail, so I don't know what the heck is.
They're not texts from Axel to tell you to stop talking nice about him.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Stop saying nice things.
Because that happened.
Yeah.
And also with us, because thank you, Doug, for coming back on. Obviously, you're a friend of the show. If you don't know Doug, former Guns N' Roses manager, former head of security for Air Supply. So many. Well, we learned about Doug, more and more about Doug each time he's on. But this time, he's my co-host. And I'm so grateful that he brought Ace. Excuse me, I should have asked how you pronounce your last name before. Is it Piva or Piva?
Piva.
Ace Piva.
Yeah, I'll answer to both, but Piva's the right way.
Because I want to make sure I say it the right way, because you're north of the border, or our border here, because we're heard everywhere around the world. But you said Toronto right now?
Yeah, just outside Toronto, in Hamilton, Ontario, known for our steel, and we want to be known for our music. But we're working on that. So.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like French Canadian Ace Piva or something like
that.
No.
Yeah, no, I failed French. Yeah, I don't have a second language.
That you guys are known for steel. My dad and mom were in the iron and steel business my whole life.
Oh wow, very cool.
My mom did the ironing. My dad did the steeling.
Oh.
Hi-oh.
Oh.
Normally I would have a soundboard hooked up where I would have the, we'll see if I add that in later. But the reason why Ace is on today, and Doug, is keeping it in the background, see if you can see, because it's just going to be now I can't not hear it, all the pings. But you know what? It'll be fun. It'll be like the Gong Show, I guess. It'll go off anytime I say something stupid. So it'll go off a lot. So Ace, obviously, I mean, you're a big Guns N' Roses fan. You know, you're an appetite for Distortion.
Yeah. My first concert was Bruce Springsteen when I was 6, and my second was Guns N' Roses when I was 9, with Aerosmith opening up for. Not Aerosmith. Skid Row opening up for them at the C&E in Toronto, and I've seen them probably 8 times. And only one of those times was with the revision Guns N' Roses. So, yeah, huge GN'R fan. I've had the opportunity to meet pretty much every unoriginal member of the band, but never an original member. And I was even worked a Kiss cruise with Steven Adler, and there was a moment there where I was about to meet him, but then I got tapped on the shoulder by Kiss's tour manager to go and talk with Kiss. So I missed out on that opportunity. So cool. Like feet, I was like 6 feet away from Steven, and I was about to tap him on the shoulder and say hi, and then I got tapped on the shoulder and didn't work out. So
well, that's all right. And Doug, thanks for rejoining us. It was nice. It was frozen on your face, smiling. So it was a good shot of you. Maybe you should use that for like a Facebook profile of the Zoom. I don't know if you got. Like, you're in your normal location. How come you seem like a little sketchy today? Like
it says my internet connection is unstable, so am I. I just don't know why.
Okay, lean up. I think if you lean up a little bit, it's we can hear you better. At least.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
I mean, I could edit all of this out later, but I don't know. I like the whole idea of live radio and the heart of what Guns N' Roses is, that chaotic and things can go possibly wrong.
Oh.
But I'm the Doug Goldstein of it, trying to keep it together, right? Yeah. See what I did? I find my way to try to make it all have it make sense. So that's awesome. And it's interesting that the last thing before Doug rejoined was you were talking about how close you were to meeting Steven Adler. And the secondary, unofficial theme of the podcast has become mental health. And I guess for a lot of reasons, I think, perhaps it does come up in other people's conversations if you talk about this band, because it's unavoidable, because, Duff McKagan, what he's gone through, Slash, what he's gone through. They've all talked about it, especially Steven Adler, who I mean, it's praise whatever you pray to, that he's still with us today. So you're the executive director of Over the Bridge. So can you tell us more about that? Because that's geared towards musicians and mental health.
Yeah, so Over the Bridge, we're a nonprofit organization based here in Canada, but our goal is to change the conversation about mental health and recovery in the music community while providing a compassionate environment in which our members can thrive. And basically, what that means is, we connect with musicians, roadies, people on and off the stage, and we provide free peer support groups, workshops, education, and resources for music community members so they can seek out the help and support that works best for them. We understand that there's no one way of, of recovery or managing our mental health. So we're open to all ways, and we recognize that, just as unique as a snowflake is and a musician is, and people are very unique, and so the path to our recoveries and our mental health is just as unique. So we work with people to figure out what works best for them, and do our best to provide those resources for them.
And thank you for doing that. And how long have you been doing it? Because obviously it's the understatement that it's needed now more than ever because of the pandemic. But how long has it been? Have you been doing this?
Yeah, my mission for this started probably back in 2013 or 14.
Okay.
Over the Bridge came to be in 2017, and we've gone. We run a large Facebook peer support group with over 1,200 music industry members and musicians, and then we run Zoom support groups twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, between 2 and 3 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're a musician, come join us. Shameless
Awesome.
plug there.
Not shameless at all.
No, so yeah, but before Over the Bridge kind of got going, I started off as a drummer myself. Got my first drums at 9. First song I ever learned was Paradise City.
Okay.
And Mr. Brownstone right after that, because the cool tom parts, I was really into that part. And then I was just the dude in the band that like booked the shows, and all the band practice was at my house. I picked up my bandmates and dropped them off and picked them up, and then everyone's like, hey, we want to book shows. Well, who's going to do that? Well, I did it. Time to book a tour. Well, hey, who does it? I'm like, I'll figure it out how to do it. And then it comes with the whole like DIY mentality at the start. It's like, okay, we needed to make posters. How do you do that? I don't know. I paint, like back in the day. And then, I was often influenced by looking at the early GN'R posters, just sort of like the cut and paste, the
Sure.
punk rock, influenced by DOA and Black Flag and stuff like that. So you just cut out the letters, you glue them on the paper, you go to the corner store and you spend a shitload of money on photocopies and go around and do that. But then as we got older, some guys wanted real 9-to-5 jobs. That never sat right for me. Although I worked in factories and in between tours and did whatever I had to do, whether it's working in a factory or bouncing at a club or whatever. But then because I learned all these skills of organizing and stuff like that, I rolled into tour management. That way, because I was a drummer, I always had to rely on pairing up with someone to, there's no solo drum shows going on. No one wants to hear a drummer solo for 45 minutes
No.
or a 3-hour set. This is whatever cover song strictly on drums. That doesn't work out so well. And I'm not
No.
a singer.
No, it doesn't. I mean, that would be quite annoying.
Yeah. So I recognize that. So I needed to sort of take control of my life a little bit more. So from that point, I was literally on the toilet looking at the back of a local magazine where there was this ad, just like a lot of people, and it's like, want to join the music industry? Call this number. I'm like, oh, it seems shady enough. Let's give it a call. Right. So, but what they were doing was that this ad was this management company who actually managed the Spice Girls and the Pixies at the time was putting together a tour management class, a 10-week tour management class, because they kind of got sick and tired of dealing with TMs that were like, just jaded and kind of think they know it all and all that stuff. So
Okay.
they wanted to build their own crew of tour managers. So I went through this course. I was the only guy with any tour experience, so I ended up at the top of my class. And as soon as I was like, I knew about 75% of the information, but without knowing that information was valuable. And then they helped me with my accountant, like tour accounting and things like that, which was really fantastic. And then they had an artist from the UK going down to South by Southwest, and they're like, "You want to do it?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And as much as I love working with the bands I was in, they don't respect you unless they're paying you. so I got a lot more respect working with these other artists. But then over the years, I started really having these deep conversations with these different artists in different bands, particularly in the post-show drive. You do your show, great night, there's alcohol and girls around and, the typical rock and roll story. And then all of a sudden, everybody gets in the van, it's quiet, and you got another 4 or 5 hour drive to go. And then everyone's sort of like on this like post-show lull. Like, I wish we could have stayed. You could have done that. That show was great, but duty calls and you got to hit the road.
Mhm.
And oftentimes during these conversations, people, these guys are talking about the lack of work-life balance because like you're either at home all the time and it's like almost too much family at one time, or you're on the road and then it's like then you got no family. And that kind of really started off the conversations and then got deeper into like anxieties and depressions and how those emotions are affecting how they are interacting with other people on tour. They got at home worries that they can't really address because they're not going to be home for another 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And things like that. But then I was out on a particular hip hop tour where this artist was in recovery for 3 years, and he had written a couple albums about his journey and stuff like that. And within a few weeks of that tour, he had relapsed. Management didn't care, agents didn't care. They just cared that he made it on stage, and we got paid. But his health, no one gave a shit. So, long story short, it really influenced me to go back to school. I became an addictions counselor, worked at a few different recovery programs in around my city of Hamilton, Ontario. And I really seen the power of peer support because I'm running these groups. I was running them with guys who half of our groups were, guys just getting out of jail, who was just trying to find the right footing. And often they were mandated to be there by the parole officer, or if they're about to go into jail, it was recommended by their lawyer to make it look good that they were trying to do something better before the court dates. So now we got guys who don't want to be there and they feel that they have to, and they don't really want to listen to anybody else. But who they did listen to were guys who were just getting out of jail or in some, buddies of theirs that were a few months into the recovery program, and they were already seeing the benefits in their life and the changes and stuff like that. And like, I just thought that was the coolest thing. Guys who are telling me coming in first day, go, "Oh, you're the counselor?" I'm like, "Yep." And they go, "Fuck you, buddy." And they put their head down on the table. And I'm like, well, as much as you're here, you're not here. And you have to participate in this conversation if you want me to mark you here. And so I get a couple more fuck yous and I'm the worst person in the world and all this. And that's fine. Right. Never did me any harm. But within a couple of weeks, they'd always come back and apologize for our first interaction and stuff. And it was just really cool. So, and it was always my goal to bring addictions counseling into music with me and use it as a tool for me to work with artists. But what I wasn't expecting was the amount of people that wanted to needed the help. So I'm like, this is a little bit overwhelming because it's only me. So I started up a Facebook peer support group, and I grew like wildfire. And and then, and really peers started connecting with each other and supporting each other. There's been a few times where people have posted late at night, 2, 3 in the morning, not feeling so great or struggling with the recovery or their mental health. And by the time I wake up, there's a thread. There's been threads of, phone numbers being shared, and I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and see it had resolved itself. And it's it happens once in a while. It's been a very cool experience like that. And and then we got into doing opiate harm reduction training. The drug in the States is called Narcan. In
Okay,
Canada,
sure.
yeah, in Canada it's called naloxone.
Oh,
But it's all just brand names and all that.
sure.
But it's the same thing. So because we've realized that our industry is out at the weirdest hours at the nights, right? So
Yeah.
whether an incident happens at the show or maybe we come across an incident on our way home. So we've trained a whole bunch of people. We've distributed over 1,400 kits to musicians, road crews, bartenders, festival volunteers, and things like that. And we've been fortunate enough to have gotten the word back that 9 of those kits have saved lives. And I'm very
Mm.
grateful for the opportunity to have been able to provide that information in those toolkits. And now when COVID hit, I was talking to about, generally 3 to 6 people a week outside the peer support groups on my own. But as soon as the pandemic hit, it started ramping up, and I average about 20 calls a week at this point. And then so I was like, oh, okay, I needed to, get up on the Zoom peer support stuff rather than just have it people typing away. We needed a little bit of more face-to-face reaction. And now we got a great core of people who come in, every group meeting, and we have people who kind of come in and out and come in whenever they need it. And it's been, a great help to some people, a lot of people actually. And I feel very blessed that I've been able to, offer support and find out that it's been beneficial to others. So it's been an amazing experience, really.
I can't
Yeah.
even only imagine.
Yeah.
How did Doug, how did you cross paths with Ace?
How did that happen, Ace? All I know is that I just love this guy because his heart is so pure, and the mission behind what it is he's trying to do certainly hits home for me. Experiences, but I don't remember the original introduction, Ace.
Yeah, we had a mutual friend, Christine, who had introduced
Oh,
us.
Kelly? Christina Kelly?
Yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and and of course, as soon as I had the opportunity to meet Doug, 12-year-old Ace's mind explodes, right? Because I've been to a ton of the shows he's put on, and it's been memorable experiences. And of course, I'm a started being a GN'R nerd when I was 9 years old. So I read all the stories about it. And me and Doug have had some phenomenal shared conversations. And he's been able to, share some of his experiences about kind of what was going on with Use Your Illusion tours and things like that. Some of the struggles that the boys in the band were going through, and just hearing that information at an older age and being able to retain it, I go, man, I wish I was doing what I was doing now, back in
I could have used you, Ace.
91, 92. I was at the shows, but I was
Yeah.
13 years old. So
Oh, yeah, just Brando, I don't know if you remember, but Christina Callio is one of the people that I talked about who is one of the unsung heroes. She worked for Mel Posner in the international department. And as you remember, Brando, I'm of the mindset that the band absolutely broke outside of the US first, in the UK.
Right.
And Christina and her boss, Mel Posner, were integral in that happening. So.
oh no, sorry, it was a different Christine, not that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so sorry. I misheard the last name and I just agreed with you. My bad. I'm like, that's a but her last name is very close. I'm just drawing a brain fart right now. But
That's right.
but it is a tour. She's a tour manager and all that. But I don't think she ever worked with
Okay.
Guns back in the day or anything like that. But she's a great advocacy for recovery in the music industry in her own right. So I just think when people all sort of have a like-mindedness of a mission of offering support and being of service to others, we all sort of just like magnets, and end up just kind of drawing close and getting introduced to each other. So
Yeah.
Doug, is there anything that you learned, I guess, from Ace, given your experience? Anything that, someone, because it's interesting talking to you. And again, these are future conversations about your history and how you became a manager. You didn't go to school. Like Ace went to a school for it. So it's interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, Ace and I, our interchanges of information through the years that we've known each other, it's mutually beneficial for each. I mean, he tells me a lot of stuff that I wish I had him play back then, and I've admitted to him the same thing that I've admitted to everybody, which is, particularly as it relates to Duff McKagan, I never should have had him on the road, and I'll never be able to go back. I wish I could, because we almost lost him. I was way too busy dealing with heroin issues, and I had no idea about the struggles that he was going through. Or I knew, but I didn't put a stop to it. And I should have.
Because we have spoken about that. And Ace, that's what I was saying before. That's how these conversations come up in a Guns N' Roses podcast, whether it's Duff, whether it's West or Keen, what do you?
Ace also knows, I mean, one of the things that we really started talking about was I spent, a year and a half as the chief operating officer of a nonprofit for the opioid epidemic. And so that's just another way that Ace and I were communicating about the Narcan.
Okay. Okay. So Ace, what would you say is the most common thing you've seen or common struggle now with musicians? I mean, I guess we could be stating the obvious because we want to be working. But is there something most common? And I guess, is there a common, because we were talking about with the snow, how it's, each road to recovery is different, but is there a common thing you see people struggling through? And is there a common practice to possibly get out of that? Again, I know this doesn't apply to all.
Well, the before COVID,
right, you could say sure, both,
right. Because the struggles have changed from my perspective. Is before, for the touring artists who spent months months at a time on the road, it was really like the lack of connection with their family and the lack of life work balance. There's the typical 9-to-5 job, which these musicians don't have. And if you go to any mental health or recovery specialist, they'll say you got to find that work-life balance. But when you're in the industry, you're at your emotional height later on in the day, right? And it takes longer to fall asleep and to sort of get that 8 hours in. It's not like a 9-to-5 job. Even if you had an exciting job, you still have your evenings to sort of calm down and prepare yourself. Now, in the case of GN'R, who is not afraid to play at 1 o'clock in the morning, and now
or start
or start at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I saw Doug's face. I was like,
What?
yeah. But on like a dopamine level, it takes time for those emotions to sort of calm down and prepare yourself for sleep. So it's not like, I just played a show to 20 to 80,000 fans and now I can go to bed right like this, right? There's a time that artists need to decompress and prepare themselves for sleep. And it's tough getting that quality sleep on a bus, no matter how nice the bus is. You're still moving, and it's always a little bit of a mind fuck when you like wake up and you're not in the same place that you started with.
Hmm.
Right. So, but now that COVID is here, you know, there's still no work-life balance because now everyone's just gone straight to being at home all the time. And in addition to that, another big struggle is this feeling of loss of identity.
Hmm.
Because any musician, uh, their identity is their work, and now they're not able to do it. Depending on where you are, like where I'm in Toronto, we can't even musicians can't even get together for a band practice or to do a live stream anymore, right? Because
Really?
because
Can't do that?
they just knocked that out like last week where people can't even get together to record a pre-recorded live stream. It's really frustrating. But like when your livelihood is based on who you are, and now you can't do that anymore, it's a sense of loss, often maybe a sense of grief and grieving.
Hmm.
And it's been very interesting to to come have these conversations. Like they're interesting conversations to have, and the perspectives are interesting, but also I could definitely see that because uh Brando, if you were unable to do what you're doing right now, who would you be on the inside? Like if you got fired, we're like you've put everything into this project. This is you. It's not just like a 9 to 5 clock job. It's your identity.
This is why you make the big bucks or doing what you're doing, because I was thinking that the entire time. And you're right. And I see a lot of my radio friends going through that now because essentially COVID took away their jobs. And it's difficult because it's happened within my company. It's happening with all companies across the board, people losing their jobs because, well, companies are also made of people. It's a trickle down effect. And then when you lose your job, when you're a radio person, who are you after? And I've thought about that. I'm very lucky, knock on wood. I've had very short moments without being on the air during my career. And this podcast is different because I'm not, other than when I fill in produce at Q1043 in New York. And that's like, as a producer talks in a morning show, it's not my show. But it's been
Right.
a while since I've been the idiot that talks between Zeppelin and Stones, for 30 seconds. But I was Brando. And I think I've said this to Doug, right? So you know me as Brando. I have that on my Zoom right now. But I like being called Brandon because for me, that deals with my duality, depression. I'm not good enough kind of thing. I've always said I'm not, before the GN'R podcast, I'm not Axel. I'm not Slash. I'm not Cher. I'm not Bono. I'm not one of these one name people. But when I haven't had those moments, when I haven't been Brando, and I've had to do maybe other jobs to support my radio job, and I have to introduce people as myself as Brandon. Oh, by the way, I do radio on the weekends or something because I feel like that gives me self-worth. So
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I see that a lot now with musicians, obviously. I think that's why a lot of musicians are turning to podcasting now to keep their brand alive until this starts happening. So that's a big deal. It's not just losing your job, it's losing your identity if you do what we do.
To intercede, sorry, Ace, but to intercede,
Please.
it's obviously a situation as well where it's the bigger they are, the harder they fall. In other words, when you're talking about a sense of loss, if you're a smaller band, playing in front of maybe you're opening, in front of 1,000 people, it's a lot different than if you are a Guns N' Roses or an Aerosmith or an AC/DC, because the size of those crowds, now you're talking about 25,000 to 100,000 people. And so the accolades are so entrenched in your head. And so when Ace talks about that dopamine kick, you've heard me say this, Brando, quite often, but they come off the road and nobody's carrying their bags into the house and nobody's, so all of a sudden the wife or the girlfriend or whatever is saying, excuse me, but the dog's not going to clean up after himself. Right.
Right.
There's this major step off that happens.
Right.
As opposed to, when Use Your Illusion, we were literally averaging 4.3 shows a week. And so, those accolades are connecting to the receptors of the brain every single night. And so now you step off, you go home, you take a break, and the depression really hits. And I would argue again, that the larger you are, the harder.
Doug froze, but I think the bigger you are, the harder you fall is what I think. We finish each other's sentences. That's how it works. And, and the same set of athletes, that's a big transition when an athlete retires. Yeah, and absolutely. But again, it's like you said, like even though you're saying, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. It's still the smaller people that in a way need that identity. Like I'm saying this, Doug, I'm being sincere when I say this. I consider myself a nobody, but if I didn't have like the Brando thing where I get to talk to cool people, I mean, I like my life. I like my 3 cats. I love, my fiance, but it's like, I don't know. Like when I'm not doing a show, I'm not doing radio. It's like, I don't know what to do with myself. So, and that's me. It's a nobody. That's so.
Something. Did somebody have a birthday recently?
Oh, she did. Yes. She's officially, my fiance is officially older than me. She's 38. I'm 37. So she's robbing the cradle for a few months.
Happy birthday on the podcast.
Oh, thanks. I'm sure she'll listen. If this was a Dave Matthews podcast, she would listen. Oh, did I show this since we're doing this on Zoom? I don't know if I show this on Zoom. She made me this pillow for my birthday last year.
Oh, that's great.
GN'R loves DMB.
That is cool.
So I had she likes her Etsy shop things. Anyway, but that's helped me. And that's Ace. I've thought about this too during quarantine. If I didn't have this podcast where I get to talk to people like Doug, talk to people like you, get to talk to my listeners. And if I was home, even though I am working, wow, I would be super depressed if I didn't have a fiance and if I have cats. Like it could be teetering, like, 100%.
So one thing you guys are describing there, something we've actually been looking into on a research level, is called post-performance depression. Right? Or the research is called post-performance mood response, because as we're sending out the questionnaires, we couldn't guide the participants in one way or the other. But post-performance mood depression, it happens after a show or after an entire tour. And it circles back around to the dopamine and serotonin levels once again, right? They get up high, and the lifestyle of touring becomes normalized. Although touring is chaotic in its own sense, you know what to expect every day. You're going to do a sound check, you're probably going to do some press, and you're going to do the show. You got those 3 things and some food in there at some points, right? But once you get home, you got to start making your bed again. You got to start picking up the dog shit. You have to start, taking your kids to school, and which is a different skill set altogether. And the transition period is very tough. And because substance use is normalized on the road, and it's not I can't speak for everybody's households dynamics, but for the majority, drinking throughout the day is not a normalized activity.
Understood. Sure.
You wake up at 12 o'clock on the road for those artists who can, 2:30, they'll be like, okay, well, they're available in the dressing room. You know what I mean? And that sort of lifestyle, it only takes 21 days to form a habit. Right. So if you're out there for long periods of time, that sort of activities become very normalized. And when you're not participating, and having that pre-show beer or shots or whatever, people start questioning you. Yeah. There's not many there's not many types of job where they're going to promote you to say, hey, go get drink and get wild as you can, because that's what the audience expects.
Or a reality star, basically.
There's not many occupations. And also one thing I would like to touch on is the emotional aspect of being an artist. From creating the song, often you dig deep into breakups, relationships, hardships, struggles, and things like that. And then because the nature of music, of going out and repeating those songs night and night, it's difficult for some of those wounds to heal when you're opening up every night. And then now with social media, everyone's a keyboard warrior, and let's say something in your life happens, you miss a wedding, you find out someone passes, you got to go up there and perform like nothing's happened. And
Mhm.
if you have an off night and not singing that love song like you just wrote it yesterday, people are going to start shitting on you, right? It's like, oh, his heart wasn't into it, he
Mhm.
phoned it in tonight. How many times has some dude who's worked at Tim Hortons or Hot Topic or whatever not wanting to be there, and they go in and they hide in the back? Well, when you're a rock and roll star, you got to be front and forward and have all that gusto, and that's what is expected. So if an artist has a bad night, we don't know what's going on in the backgrounds, right? But it's so easy,
100% right.
but it's so easy for people to just sit there and click. And if you're a young artist who hangs their hat on a lot of social media, you're about to get your ass
Yeah.
kicked. So
Wow. Yeah, you are absolutely right. And that is something I say quite often. It's amazing. I don't think any other fan base does this quite like Guns N' Roses, where they analyze every performance. And
yeah,
it's like, you
very good.
don't know what they have gone through, that day, a bad day. It could be a bad day. Maybe they had the shits that day and you still got to perform. I've had it, just so
Yeah,
I understand, I've had to be on the radio uh, during like horrific moments in my life, just knowing like I had to perform. I'll never forget this when I was taking care of my grandfather. He was dying of he had oral cancer. Awful. Like he never smoked, but it was just awful. And I was commuting to actually from Brooklyn to Poughkeepsie, so it would take like a 2-hour drive. If maybe Doug, you're familiar.
yeah, yeah.
And I just wake up and he's like puttering around the kitchen, and I can see blood everywhere. And he's just like one of his sores. I got to clean that up. I'm cleaning up the kitchen. Then I drive 2 hours. I know this is terrible, but these are things that now I'm doing a 5-hour radio show. Then I gotta do it. I'm a nobody. I'm not Axel. I gotta pretend I can't be. So that was Guns N' Roses. Welcome to the Jungle. 101.5 WPDH. And you know what though? I did say to my program director a couple. I said I believe my past 2 weeks performances weren't as good as they could be. I've had some stuff going on. He never approached me about it, but I had to tell him that. And
Very open about it.
those things happen, and everyone's different. I mentioned athletes earlier. Brett Favre, that famous game after his dad died, was like one of the best games of his career.
Wow.
It's not everyone's going to do that. That's great that he did that. He fought through that, but there are people that are going to need off.
That's
You
right.
know,
So here's a question for you, Brando: Is what if you were unable to go and take care of your dad during those times, knowing what he was going through?
so that's a little bit of a regret. With my dad, I went back on the air maybe 5 days after he took his life, and I knew
Oh, sorry.
that's all right. I knew that if I waited any longer, I would not have been on the air ever again. Like I know I needed to do this, needed to get back on the road, so to speak. But I knew my dad always listened to me, liked to watch me perform. And he got that kind of adrenaline. That was like a good part of his day. But you're right. I was so focused. Maybe I didn't have the right work-life balance. I was
Yeah.
so focused on my career, making, getting full time in radio at that point. I wasn't seeing what was going on with my family.
The other thing though that I'd like to circle back to is when Ace was talking about the peer group as a help, right?
Right.
To be able to talk to other people, Brando, who've gone through similar experiences, would that help? For instance, I have a friend, I won't think about this, it's personal business, but him and his brother were sitting at the table when his father put a gun in his mouth and blew his brains out in front of them. How do you ever come back from that? Mariska Hargitay on Law and Order SVU. She's been on there forever. Jane Mansfield was her mother. Different, she didn't take her own life. She was an automobile accident, but the mother's head, Jane Mansfield's head, landed in Mariska Hargitay's lap. She's 60 years old or something. So I think that the peer mentality, I think Ace is dead right. I mean, to be able to
Yes.
share similar experiences and realize you're not alone, right? I think it's really imperative in people's healing of whatever it is that they're going through. So yeah, no, I wanted to address that.
You're right, and I'm glad you said that. And Ace, I know we only have you for a little bit while longer, but the pure thing, and that's why I'm so grateful for the audience of Appetite for Distortion. Yeah, it's a Guns N' Roses podcast, but I'm telling you, like it was recently as yesterday. I get them all the time. Thank you for talking about mental health. This is what I'm going through, and I've learned, at the time I thought I went through the worst thing anyone's ever gone through. But when you go to, I thankfully I was already in therapy at the time, but you learn after, like there are people who, and worse could be subjective, but there are people who have also had terrible tragedies. And now it made me just realize and appreciate also, why I'm also a Guns N' Roses fan, because of the tragedies they've all experienced. They're not just, it's a rock band. Like what Axl's gone through and what he's able to come out of it and where he is now is, oh my goodness. And I mentioned Steven Adler at the beginning. They could be tragedies. Sorry.
Brando, that he shared publicly. He shares publicly some of the struggles that he's gone through. I think it's really imperative. It's he's talking to people about things that transpired when he was a child, and there's a lot of
Axl. Yeah.
I hear from the fans a lot that this particular song got me through some of the most difficult times of my life. And they're thinking me, I didn't write the song. But it's actually refreshing to hear people that have been able to latch on to what Axl's experiences have been for their own purposes. Him and I used to dispute, why do people want to get my autograph? It's not about the autograph, right? He said, but the autograph, that's just so they can show their friends that they met me. And I said, no, you're wrong. You're totally wrong. That's just the ability to stand in front of you and tell you what your songs meant to them. And because in every situation, Ace, you did security,
Yeah.
But when I was a bodyguard in particular, you're running into people, and all they want to do with that autograph is share their life's experiences based upon what the musician has given them. And no more, no less. It's not about the autograph. It never has been.
Well, one of the most unique things about the music industry and these bands is the cultures that they create amongst their fans. Whether you go to a rock concert or opera show or EDM or country or whatever genre of music, there is a built-in culture surrounded that. And then you got the mega artists, like Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and Aerosmith and Jay-Z and all these guys, they have cult and Kiss, they have created lifelong community and cultures that live and hopefully not die, but their life is structured around the values of a lot of these artists. And there's no brands out, maybe except for Nike, that is able to get that sort of community behind them, because people feel like they've been able to connect with these artists through their songs, and it's a very one-way relationship, because the fans know everything about the artist, but the artist doesn't know anything about that particular fan. But that doesn't take away from the experience of those people within that culture. So just circling back around to OTB a little bit, is just like, through these conversations and through me being able to recognize things like this, is although OTB does focus in on the artists and the influencers of the music industry, it's because we hope that those people take it back to their communities, put something positive in their songs, because we know that the work that OTB does has an opportunity to influence these people, which eventually, I hope, cross my fingers, could lead fans to a wealthier lifestyle. Not financially, but just more mentally rich and physically rich, and because of the influential power that these artists have within their fan base / community.
Yeah, and speaking of Slash, I know what you meant it in a different way. I that's why I enjoy when Slash and especially Duff, they talk about it, because so many fans will relate to those stories as much as any song. And whether we like it or not, we shouldn't have any idols or idolize anybody. It is what it is. You know, I don't idolize Guns N' Roses. Obviously, I love them to death. And yeah, it would mean a lot and it does mean a lot when they talk about mental health. It makes me feel less weird because I know I'm weird and I can identify, you know, even though I'm a lowly radio guy, the branding thing, again, I can identify with and I understand and apply to my life and help me navigate my life. And that's, I'm hoping that's what people are able to take away from this conversation and whether they're in a band or not, and just see like maybe they have a brand or an identity from going into their office every day and they're the most popular person in their office. And now they're missing that, you know, they were the funniest guy at lunch, you know, so that you can apply it applies to everybody, but it's wonderful that you're focusing on musicians because that's more about that. There's the whole Save Our Stages thing and there's so many people out of work and there's so many layers to it. So you're definitely doing a lot of work and I'm glad that you're doing it. So thank you. Anything? Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, no, I feel incredibly blessed to know Ace and consider him and call him a friend. What he does is a tireless job where all he does is try and help others. And I think he should be commended for that. I know he's got a hard stop. So Ace, if you would like to share how people can reach the organization, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you know, on social media, you can find us at OTB Nonprofit. That's for our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook accounts, and overthebridge.org. And if you come to our website and scroll down just a little bit, there is a link that will take any musician or industry person right to our peer support groups. You know, we are there on Tuesdays and Fridays between 2 and 3 p.m. Eastern time. And, you know, we don't do this for the money. Trust me, we don't do it for the money.
Neither do I.
But if anybody does have a few extra bucks that they would like to donate and support musicians' mental health, we'd be greatly appreciated for any donation.
Water, guys. See, Brando, you got to get this out there. I'll try and hook us up with Fiji.
Oh, Fiji water. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, one thing is, since this does have you know, you have a great audience here, we're always looking for partnership opportunities. And one thing that's been on the back of my head lately is how can we get, you know, more tours sponsored by other things outside of alcohol? You know, like I would love to, you know, if someone from Coca-Cola /Bubbly is listening here, contact me. I want to work with Bubbly.
well, it's Buble if you've seen the commercials.
Oh, Buble, yes.
And speaking of commercials, I refrain from doing this all episode. Ace is the place with a helpful hardware store. I'm sorry.
It's been a few years since I've heard that one, but I appreciate that throwback.
The commercials on all the time here in the States or New York, whatever. Sorry.
That's funny. You know, at least
place for your helpful addiction issues. That's what we need to change it to.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, you know, we're here. You know, join our Facebook group, visit us on our Zooms. You know, email me directly, and we'll do our best to help anybody out. And you know, I really don't like giving out referrals because I think the world of help, people get shuffled around too often. You know, oh, go talk to this person, this person. No, come talk to me. You know, I mean, the buck stops here, and we, you know, our peer support groups is a great place to start. So
God bless you for what you do, Ace. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate your time and your friendship.
I thank you very much, Doug. I love everybody, and if there's any opportunity to come and visit you again, Brando, I love it. So
absolutely, this won't be the last time we speak. Ace, thank you for your time and everything that you do.
Thank you very much. Take care.
You got it. Doug, you gonna do some overtime with me, or are we just gonna say bye to Ace?
Where's my stuff? Hang on.
All right, everybody. I really appreciate this.
You got it.
Take care.
Bye, Ace.
Bye.
All right. So as Ace says goodbye, are we gonna do some overtime, or are we gonna?
Work until about 2, so I've got an hour.
Oh well, we're not gonna do another hour. We want this episode to focus.
You gotta say that.
I mean, is is there anything I guess you want to talk about? Because people are, obviously love hearing from you. You're one of my favorite guests and listeners' favorite guests.
Let's kind of talk about the mental health issue because I recently had my feelings hurt when I discovered a video of Axl Rose talking about me being in an insane asylum, which never transpired. I certainly have had my own issues. Saddened by losing my children, by them, being moved around. But to blanketly say that I was in an insane asylum is false.
So if people haven't seen, there's a video going around, and I didn't share it on social media because it was just one of those, Axl's on a tour bus with some ladies, and obviously someone's filming without his knowledge. So I guess it felt creepy. It wasn't even like a paparazzi. It was like somebody was filming it without him seeing it. And he said that you were a good, I don't know why he started talking about you. I think he was saying that, now Fernando's his manager, and he was laughing, joking, he's screwed. I don't know. I don't need Fernando to possibly dislike me or, as I try to, because I would love to talk to Slash and Duff about mental health at some point if they ever want to come on. So, but Axl said he went crazy, something about your ex-wife, and he was institutionalized. And that was sent to you by a few, because you're friendly with fans that want you to see it, and that's what you're referring to. So, like, why would Axl think that? Or I don't even want to say. I think this is something that I want to say before you even continue. If you are, because I've had family members, and I haven't come close. I've had family members and friends who have spent a few days in a mental facility, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you did, Doug, but it shouldn't be said in that way because this was go back to what I was just talking about with my dad with Ace, and I know I've spoken to you more about it, Doug. He was supposed to like go again, and he couldn't handle it, like thinking like he was like a failure and going again like in his life, and my mom's like, just tell everyone you're just going on a vacation, extended, no one even needs to know that's where you're going. But so there's nothing wrong with that. That needs to be said first and foremost.
In fact, I have been pretty vocal about my own family and some of the issues that they had to do with my brother. And yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with seeking help. It was just very strange to me to hear him talk about me because he doesn't know. And I love him very much. And so it just kind of hurt my heart that he would take to that level to tell people that don't even know who I am. It'd be different if he was talking to Betta and Fernando and Del James and blah, blah, blah. It didn't transpire that way. Or if he wanted to talk to me about it, I would certainly tell him, and I take ownership in some of the issues that I've had. So I will never tell you that I'm the most sane guy you'll ever meet. I don't think anybody who's creative is. And I'm absolutely creative. But yeah, no, that one just, and Brando, because we talked about it off the record, that one just struck me weird and hurt my heart. And it was clearly from before the Not in a Lifetime tour. At least, when you're looking at kind of time frame, it looks like they're in Brazil somewhere on a tour bus. So I couldn't.
Yeah, he has like the Fu Manchu thing going, and that's before,
knock on 7 s'mores, and now he's looking fantastic. The guy's in incredible, stupid shape, and God bless him. I mean, the guy's, he took a lot of heat publicly for what his appearance looked like, and I'll tell you what, that looks just incredible for a guy who's 59.
And that's something else too that I believe relates to the mental health conversation. And I think about, how can you not think about, anybody thinks about themselves, whether in some degree. So when I see that about Axl or other artists who've gotten older, I think recently like Michael Monroe, because he was just on with Todd Kearns on his podcast, so it made the news, and people were talking shit about the way Michael Monroe looks. And it's like, I don't think people understand what aging is. It doesn't mean you become ugly or whatever negative thing. That's just what aging is. It's just a process of whether it's a fucking turtle or a person or, wood. It's an aging process that we all do. So it's strange. And in that arena, when you are a public face, to kind of bounce off with Ace's what he was talking about with your brand, the brand is also your looks.
Absolutely.
So when you are getting shit on by people you don't know,
Yeah, right.
and it's hard, even the Axel, I'm assuming he had a thick skin, but like to lash out. I mean, I don't think he had what would you say? Do you have a thin skin or a thick skin?
See, again, I know this guy incredibly well, and to think that those comments wouldn't hurt him, that's a ludicrous assertion.
Right. So even if you think like it wouldn't hurt somebody, it still can. Like we're still just like how we all age, we're all subject to. It's not even like being snowflakes, how some people like to label it. That's just where human beings, we're not only built to age, we're built to be hurt emotionally. That's just is what it is. And if you don't get hurt emotionally, you need to see a therapist because you're not allowing yourself to feel that.
Again, Brando, just to reiterate, I mean, of all the band members, I would have to say Axel is the most sensitive. He's incredible, and he gets mad at me when I say nice things about him, which I find really amusing. But he is an incredibly sweet man who's a fantastic friend to have. He's just a good guy, and so, but he's also very sensitive. I used to tell him all the time, "Don't read the press. No, stop reading the press."
It was one of the first.
It's I mean, everybody sits in front of a computer with a phone and they can post anything. Cowers behind keyboards. I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm not into it, and I'm not going to be. I'm not in denial where people are like, okay, somebody looks different or sounds different. Let's just use the word different, and I'd be like, sure, but it's one of those things. It sounds so cliche and stupid. Like, do you really need to say something not nice? Like what does that do? You could think it, maybe say it in your house, but to go out of your way and type it, I guess that's why. So I think you need to question your mental health if you're the kind of person. And I think maybe Doug, you can because you're very honest, and that's why we get along. I wasn't always like this, where I feel I understood mental health and empathy. I had to go through my tragedies because I think I didn't get it when I was younger. I would say things that may be hurtful. I would criticize, this person looks ugly, this person looks fat, but I'd be saying the same things about myself. So there are things I want to and I have actually apologized to other people before when I felt like I wasn't, sober from alcohol or wasn't in therapy. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's interesting. I literally last night laying in bed, I saw there's this good friend. He's a fan of the band's from Ireland, Stephen Brown, and he had posted a picture, and it looked like the person in the picture looked like he was having a good time, and so I said, "Oh, look, it looks like Rain Man, right?" And he wrote back, and it was because somebody had passed, and I felt like an idiot. So you got to be careful because you don't know what somebody else is going through, right? Before you make some kind of an inane comment like I did.
I know. And I still catch myself. I'm like, I shouldn't have said that. And I think that's the most important thing, that if you say something that may offend or hurt somebody, it's what happens after. If you really okay, wow, okay, I didn't get that, and you take that as a learning moment, that's great. So that's why I would love to hear, Axel talk about his feelings on One in a Million. One in a Million now, where I've had, and I just got this message yesterday from a listener, an African American listener who just found me, and listened to the conversations I had about that with Tracy and Roberta separately. I really appreciated it, because I'm honest about my feelings, how I had to get over certain of my racist tendencies, or I didn't understand that they were. I think that's all, but that's all human. It's all evolving. So to see where Slash and Duff are now, compared to what they were when you were dealing with them, is something of a miracle. All of them.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding? I look at it and I just go, God bless them. I mean, and look, I mean, I have to give people don't like when I say nice things about Team Brazil either, but the reality is Betta and Fernando being in Axel's life and Slash's life and Duff's life and all that, they're clearly doing something right in terms of making sure that the guys are staying happy and clean. And I mean, they, from all the reports I get, the guys are doing fantastic. And so accolades have to be given to Team Brazil for the ability to keep that together as well, you know.
And that's something I'm glad you said, because as much as like I try to be impartial, I will criticize when necessary, but that's something I have always felt about Team Brazil. And I don't know if I feel like I've said it. If they got Axel to a place where he's smiling on stage, and giving him that family that, eluded him, that's the best thing. Like, yeah, we all want new music. We all want this, but that nothing is more important than that. Nothing. Even as a hardcore, just Guns N' Roses fan, I don't know Axel like Axel. So I'm not as emotionally, personally connected, obviously. But as a human being, I'd rather have a happy Axel than new music, honestly.
And it's fun for me to watch him on the.
Well, that's okay.
And so just to go on record again, for the fans that do listen in, just please know that my feelings as it relates to Team Brazil are, Betta and Fernando have been his family, and they love him, and it's very evident. And so that needs to be acknowledged, whatever your feelings are about ticket prices or whatever else, or accessibility to the band, regardless. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, as much as I want to interview them, I just, I've learned I'm not going to put my selfishness of landing an interview over, I don't know, like, well, a clickbait would come out of it and set him in a tizzy. I don't know. I do my best. And I think that's why I like talking to you, Doug, because it's not just the GNR stories. You come from a place where I think like you got it. You've learned so much and you've been through so much, and you're so.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I appreciate you bringing Ace on to have this conversation.
Thank you. I mean, it's stuff that needs to be heard and said. I hope that the fans reach out if anybody's in need, because Ace is a wonderful man who absolutely helped.
I know Ace for sure. I know fans have reached out to you just to chat. I know fans have obviously reached out to me because I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. I absolutely acknowledge all of you who've reached out to me privately just to thank me for talking about mental health. And it's nice because I just didn't know how that was going to be received, because this is Guns N' Roses. We got to talk Guns N' Roses, but you know what? It makes sense. It makes sense.
And we're touching a nerve, because whether people have experienced it themselves or in their family, everybody has experienced it.
Right. So that's what.
Could be friend, could be family, whatever.
That's it. So everybody is a fan of Guns N' Roses, and everybody has mental health issues, and that's what this podcast is about.
That's really probably the reason they are fans.
That's exactly.
Yeah, we all.
I think I probably said that early on in the podcast. I'm like, you need to be a little mentally unstable to be a Guns N' Roses fan, to be a diehard Guns N' Roses fan, or their manager. Fair enough.
Not you, Fernando, me.
Oh, right. I know what you meant. I mean, we did I did a whole episode on depression. I mean, it was a while ago with Alan Niven. So he's somebody. I know people have reached out for that episode. So in addition, if you want to hear more about it, actually on YouTube, I put up a few separate episodes of different guests talking about mental health. So Alan Niven's up there. Brian Head Welsh is up there. Rocco Guarino, who worked with Velvet Revolver. Yeah, he directed some videos. He did a lot of different stuff for them. And there's a fourth person. So anyway, that's a what I call an AFD compilation. So there's two of them actually, Doug, on YouTube. There's one of just West Arkeen related interviews where people from the Outpatients.
Wow.
And his nephew, believe it or not. So that's all together in one compilation. And then YouTube, obviously mental health. There's a compilation in addition to this episode, because you know what, Doug, this all ties in together. Because people are at home looking for things to do and an escape. People also will say they started re-listening to this podcast and then they appreciate, it's a mental escape. Not all these podcasts are, they can be a half hour long, maybe an hour. This one's going to be almost an hour and a half. If you just want to sit and escape for a few hours and listen to Guns N' Roses talk, I gave you a couple themes to do. So one of them being mental health. So there you go. Doug, we're obviously we're going to do this again. We have a lot to talk about, but we got to we're not going to rub the genie lamp yet, right?
Yeah. Hey, Brando, do you want to mention that you and I might be working on something?
Do you? Yeah, I guess we can just we can leave a little nugget at the end of the episode, see if anybody notices, and see what happens.
You want to do it?
Well, it's your book, so.
So everybody has said, you know, when are you going to write a book? When are you going to write a book? And so one of the things that I love about Brando is he doesn't take sides. And so I approached him, months ago now, about the chance to work together on a book project. And so him and I are doing that. One of the things that I want and Brando wants is, if you want us to talk about something in the book, please let Brando know, and he will bring it up and we will record it, talk about it, and we will absolutely say this was asked by this person. So completely different than any Guns N' Roses book, in that we're asking the interaction of the fans.
Okay. You cut out a little bit at the end there, but that'll be good when it's written down, because there will be no audio unless we do an audio book. But yeah, I guess first thing I guess I should say, I shouldn't even say I guess I should say, I know I should say, is thank you, Doug, for this unbelievable opportunity to do this. You know, I've written one self-published book in my life. It was when I started my radio career, and I was only working weekends, and one of my side jobs was working at this very old this was in Cape Cod, if I didn't say that, a very old like sandwich shop, ice cream sandwich shop. And it started out like 100 years ago as a pharmacy, then a post office. It was like fourth generation. So the owner always wanted to put together a book. He had all these old artifacts and pictures. So over the course of a winter where Cape Cod is closed, basically, because it's a summer place, I helped him write the book. Where I my only experience was, you know, journalism school and things, you know, maybe short articles I've written about sports, nothing crazy, but we did it all through Microsoft Word. And I mean, I thought that was crazy. That sold like maybe 400 copies or something like that. And, you know, Doug brings this up to me, and what am I going to say? No, I'm not going to say no. It's certainly daunting, but Doug is often, I forgot who you made this joke with, because I just don't, you know, as we talk about mental health, it's appropriate. I should think more highly of myself than I do. I just don't. So it's one of those, until it's real, it's hard to talk about, you know, like until this book is like, they're printed, it's going to be like, oh my God, anything can go wrong. I'm those Doug. If I get a call from somebody, like I always think it's something bad is going to happen. Yeah. It's never anything good. And but obviously most of it has been.
That's the Jewish deprecation, Brando.
It's that mixed in with my actual chemical imbalance. It's all of it. It's all of it. So yeah, Doug and I, since late last year, and we've caught up more recently. I think we both needed to be like, we both had a lot of stuff going on, and we're doing our work-life balance now, work-life book balance. We've recorded a bunch of Zoom conversations, and I'm transcribing them, and it's taken shape. And you know, what I find the most fascinating about this book is not going to be just the Guns N' Roses stuff, but what we don't know about Doug and how much his childhood prepared him for the life that he would lead. It's like, you know, I'm not a religious person, but it's like kind of like you were put through certain terrible situations for a reason. And it's the parallels between childhood and Guns N' Roses. Sometimes I'm like, wow. And they're also you and your history of fighting, I will say. There's some, I don't know. I don't know. Let's just say if it ever becomes a movie, we got to get Jason Statham to play you. I'll just say that. So
you said that.
I know. So people, of course, are like, when is it going to come out? I mean, we're still in the very, very early stages of it. Right. When we're done, yeah.
Actually use that with Chinese democracy.
Soon is the word, but the difference is we'll always keep you updated, you know. And yeah, we're gonna do what I do on the podcast. You ask me a question, and I give you credit on the podcast. Wouldn't that be awesome in a book to see that? And you're gonna help us write it. You're gonna be a part of it.
Neither Brando or I have ever seen that. Right. When I first brought it up to Brando, he was like, "Wow, okay, well, that's an interesting twist." Yeah, I mean, but might as well. I mean, guys, let's find out exactly some of the questions that you want answered. Obviously, some of them, if they contain really highly sensitive material, I'm probably not going to be addressing it. But,
Right.
But if there's inconsistencies that you see reading one book versus the other, blah, 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 please just ask away. I mean, the one thing that I can say is I'm the only sober person throughout the Use Your Illusion tour and Appetite tour to be writing a book or have put out a book. So my recollections are going to be a little more accurate.
So, and that being said, let me say this, and Doug and I have spoke about this off the air, because that's why I'm like, how do I not, believe Doug? We've spoken so many hours. And when I talk to Alan Niven, and I know they have friction, and obviously Alan's going to be
And I don't want
spoken about in the book, but it's like Alan, I love Alan, I know Slash and other people weren't very, favorable into you in your book. Slash, I'm just telling Doug's story. Please don't hate me. That's all I'm doing. No one hate me. I'm just telling Doug's story.
don't shoot the messenger, baby.
There you go. Don't shoot the messenger. Thank you. That should be the byline.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Doug, there you go. We'll maybe we'll see when people start. I'll put out the episode and just when we start hearing back when this happens. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again to Ace Piva of Over the Bridge. We'll have him back. He's doing just phenomenal work.
You guys, overthebridge.org. Reach out if you or anybody that you know is in need.
Absolutely. And Doug, thank you. We're going to be talking a lot, not just on the podcast. And again, of course, thank you to every single one of you who tuned into this Appetite for Distortion, Guns N' Roses themed bar mitzvah party of a podcast, because without you, I wouldn't be in position to write a book with Doug Goldstein. And those are facts. So without you, there is none of this. So who will the next episode, who next guest be? Who will the next episode? When we see it, all that jazz. Well, as we just alluded to, Doug just said what Axel said about Chinese. You'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.